What do you do when the person you've loved for 40 years looks you in the eye and says you were never their choice, just their convenience? That's the question James Harper faced on a rainy November evening, standing in the living room that had witnessed decades of laughter, arguments, and quiet promises. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and regret, the ticking of the mantel clock slicing through the silence. At 65, James had thought his life with Eleanor was a tapestry of shared dreams, woven through years of sacrifice. But her words, sharp as a blade, unraveled it all in an instant. 40 years ago, James had been a young carpenter, his hands calloused but his heart soft. Eleanor, with her bright smile and quick wit, had seemed like a dream he didn't deserve. They met at a community dance, her laughter pulling him like a moth to flame. He proposed within a year, and she said yes, sir, so he thought. They built a life together, 2 children, a modest home, and countless small moments that felt like love. James worked long hours, saving every penny to give Eleanor the life she deserved. He thought they were happy. He thought wrong. That evening, as rain battered the windows, Eleanor sat across from him, her face cold and distant. The kids were long grown, the house too quiet. She'd been acting strange for months, distracted, secretive. James had chalked it up to aging, to the weight of routine. But then she spoke, her voice steady but cruel. You were just convenient, James. I needed stability, and you were there. My heart was always somewhere else. Each word landed like a hammer on his chest, splintering the foundation of his life. He stared at her, searching for the woman he'd loved, but she was a stranger now. Who was this woman he'd shared a bed with for decades? The question burned as James's shock turned to anger. He remembered the late-night calls she'd dismissed as work, the weekends she'd spent away on vague trips. He'd trusted her, blindly, faithfully. But now, her confession cracked open a vault of doubt. Convenient. The word echoed, mocking every sacrifice he'd made. His hands trembled as he stood, walking to the old oak desk where he kept their memories, photos, letters, mementos of a life he thought was real. Then he saw it, a faded envelope tucked beneath a stack of bills, addressed to Eleanor in a handwriting he didn't recognize. His heart pounded as he tore it open, revealing a letter dated 10 years ago. It was from a man named Richard, filled with words of longing and regret. I wish we'd run away together, it read. You deserved more than that small-town life with him. James's vision blurred, not with tears, but with rage. There were more letters, a hidden stack, each one a piece of Eleanor's secret life. She'd been in love with someone else, all this time, while he built their world. Eleanor's eyes widened as he held up the letters. You want to talk about convenience? He asked, his voice low but steady. Let's talk about Richard. Let's talk about the life you wanted while I was breaking my back for you. Her face paled, her composure crumbling. She tried to speak, to explain, but James wasn't done. He pulled out his phone, where he'd saved a message he'd found months ago but ignored, hoping it was nothing. It was from Richard, sent last year, planning a meeting. You thought I wouldn't notice? James said, his voice rising. You thought I'd just stay your convenient fool? The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Eleanor's silence was her admission. She'd stayed with James for the house, the stability, the life he provided, while her heart belonged to someone else. But James wasn't the broken man she expected. He walked to the mantel, where a photo of their wedding day sat. He loved that picture, her smile, his proud grin. Now it felt like a lie. He turned to her, his voice calm but piercing. I gave you everything, Eleanor. I deserved better than being your fallback. He could have shouted, could have thrown the letters in her face, but James chose a different path. He placed the letters on the table, each one a testament and system to her betrayal, and looked her in the eye. You don't get to rewrite our story, he said. Not after I gave you my life. Eleanor's lips trembled, but no apology came. She'd made her choice long ago, and now James made his. He walked to the door, rain still pounding outside, and paused. I hope Richard was worth it, he said, then stepped into the storm, leaving the house and her behind. The weeks that followed were a blur of pain and clarity. James moved into a small apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of his old life. Friends urged him to forgive, to rebuild, but he couldn't. Not yet. He started volunteering at a community center, teaching woodworking to kids who reminded him of his younger self. Their eager faces, their unscarred dreams, gave him purpose. He wasn't rebuilding his life for Eleanor or for revenge. He was rebuilding it for himself. One evening, as he sanded a piece of oak, a memory surfaced not of Eleanor, but of his mother, who'd taught him that love was a choice, not a convenience. He'd chosen Eleanor every day, even when it was hard. She hadn't done the same. The realization didn't erase the hurt, but it loosened its grip. James began to see his worth, not as a husband who'd been betrayed, but as a man who'd loved fiercely, honestly, even when it wasn't returned. Months later, he heard through mutual friends that Eleanor had moved away, perhaps to find Richard, perhaps to escape the truth. James didn't care. He'd stopped looking for answers in her. Instead, he found them in the laughter of the kids he taught, in the quiet pride of a well-crafted table, in the small, steady steps of a life reclaimed. He'd been convenient once, but now he was enough. The rain still fell some nights, but it didn't feel so heavy anymore. James had learned that love, real love, wasn't about being someone's fallback. It was about choosing yourself, too. And in that choice, he found freedom not from the past, but from the weight of a lie that had never been his to carry. What do you do when someone breaks your heart after 40 years? You pick up the pieces, not for them, but for you. And you keep going.